Good evening. Welcome to the QCIS channel. Where on this channel you get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. My name is Leon Jones, and this evening I'm going to talk about the agency known as the construction manager at risk. Now, the construction manager at risk could be either the general contractor or it could be someone who's working on the technical side of construction management. Generally, when you deal with a construction manager at risk, you have a lot of compliance issues. Now, if I had a organizational chart, I would have the owner, and under that owner, you would have the general contractor. The general contractor has a construction manager. And then you would have, let's say, the architect, the engineer, construction, AEC. They also have construction managers as well, but they're mainly on the construction administrative side. And under the contractor, GC, you would probably have your field personnel, your project manager, your field engineer. And what I mean by field personnel, the ones who are actually doing your labor jobs, like excavating, could be laying pipe. Generally, those are subcontractors, but subcontractors, anybody, to put a long story short, who's going to be involved in actually building the infrastructure is going to be under the contractor. Anybody who's going to be on the administrative side and the design side and the inspection side is going to be under the architect, engineer, and of course, construction. Now, I'm bringing you this topic because I have to say this about construction. It is a very good field. Now, here's the problem with it, and I'm going to be very honest with it. You have two sides to choose from. Now, depending on which way you want to go, you could be on the contractor side where it's not seasonal, but you work long hours. And you have to move around when it comes to different projects. Also, you may work in a unionized area and you may work in an area that's non-unionized. And the majority of the projects you're going to see are vertical projects like commercial buildings. Now, of course, if you work for a company like here in Indiana, like Ryler or Milestone or E&B, you do a lot of the roadway. However, roadway is very, very seasonal. Goes from March till the end of November. And depending on what the weather is, early December, but the plants shut down for roadways generally after Thanksgiving. Now, I say this because I've been in the construction industry for quite a while. And if you're an engineer, here's what I want to tell you. Get your FE and PE. I enjoy construction, but there's some aspects about it that you run right into a dead end. And the reason why is there's a lot of competition. You have individuals who have associate's degrees, who have bachelor's degrees, master's degrees. You have individuals who don't have any degree, but they have experience. And when you get to the contractor side, you basically have individuals also with degrees, particularly your project engineers. But the ones who don't have degrees are basically your laborers, and they work their way up to foreman. And then from foreman, you can work your way up to superintendent. Now, if you have an engineering degree, you start off as a project engineer, then you want to become a project manager because you're the one that's actually overseeing the project, the whole project, where the superintendent just manages all the field activities. Now, I say this because you have to look at the market of construction. Construction can be very stagnated if you don't have both experience and a degree. Now, if I had to choose between having a degree and having experience, I'd rather have a degree because you can always gain experience. Whereas, for the most part, you have a number of individuals who have experience and they don't want to go any higher. They're very complacent. And complacency in construction, whether it be on the contractor side or on a technical side, or we call it the technical side is the CM at risk or the agency side, you're going to run into a lot of issues because there's not really many places you can go. But bottom line, I just wanted to add that information into this video because there might be some individuals who don't understand what's involved in construction. Yes, you build infrastructure, but there's a lot that goes into construction. Now, let me share my screen and let's talk about what is construction management. Basically, it's a structured visual overview dealing with, or we can say it's going to detail how a construction project will be planned, executed, monitored, and closed, aimed at ensuring projects are completed on time, within budget, and to quality standards. Now, these presentations typically cover project lifestyles, risk management, scheduling, which if you have MS project, you're going to see what Gantt charts are, cost estimation, resource allocation, and safety compliance for stakeholders. Now, under the key elements that are part of this presentation, you're going to have your project phases. And that's basically a detailed breakdown of initiation, planning, design, bidding, construction, and closeout. Then you're going to have your roles and responsibilities. Definition of a construction manager's role in directing subcontractors and managing site personnel. Management strategies, specific plans for cost control, quality assurance, and site logistics. Risk mitigation, identification of potential project hazards such as safety issues, material shortages, or budget overruns. Tools and technology, utilization of software for scheduling, Gantt charts, PERT, CPM, Procore is in there as well. And that's used for tracking progress. Now, these presentations are essential for communicating project objectives, requirements, and constraints to owners, contractors, and team members. But tonight I'm dealing with the construction manager at risk. And it's generally an agency. The construction manager at risk is part of the chain of command when it comes to contract management. Now, in construction, if there's an issue, the contractor does not go to the owner for anything if there's a design issue. Contractor can go to the architect, or if there's a CM at risk, the contractor can go to the CM at risk, and the CM at risk goes to the contractor. That's how the workflow flows in construction. And you have to have a workflow that works, because the hierarchy in construction is a structure that is followed so everybody stays on the same page for a construction project. Now let's get into the PowerPoint presentation, because this is what you need to see. So we're dealing with the construction manager at risk. I've already given you the definition of construction management overall. So When you see the CM-R, that means construction manager at risk. Now, when we deal with construction management at risk, it's a project delivery method in which the construction manager acts as a consultant to the owner during a portion of the design phase. That's known as the pre-construction services. And that's basically for scheduling, cost estimating, and constructability. Then he or she assumes the risk for construction performance as the equivalent of a general contractor holding all trade subcontracts during the construction phase. Now, the CMR must have a general contractor's license and be registered as a construction manager with SCLLR, which that has something to do with the state of South Carolina. Now, the advantages. Well, the contractor provides pre-construction services for a fixed fee and a guaranteed maximum price for construction services. So I brought some of that information up last week, so you're going to see relatively some of the same information for this week's video. As I move on, the contractor perspective and input during design phase provides familiarity with design features and the ability to fast track early components of construction prior to completion of design. And the CMR provides a GMP that is only exceeded due to owner changes. Now, the disadvantages. Now, it's a two-step process to hire CMR via RFQ, which stands for Request for Qualifications, and RFP, which stands for Request for Proposal. And it can take 3 months or more. And qualifications-based selection of CMR utilizes cost as a small portion of the criteria. Therefore, selected CMR may not be the lowest cost. And of course, the GMP will have assumptions for unfinished design, disagreements over assumptions. So when you look at the overall spectrum of what a CMR advantages and disadvantages are, as we are dealing with the disadvantages, well, one of the disadvantages is ensuing too costly early components that may impact the overall GMP of a completed project. And then you're going to have a failure to negotiate a GMP, and that will result in termination of CMR and proceeding with the design bid build process. And you also deal with contracting milestones. So basically, that when you look at milestones, what is involved is the agency provides written determination letters to the OSC that CMR is most advantageous. Of course, if you're in South Carolina, this is where everything comes from. See Chapter 3 of the manual. And of course, procurement of AE. Now, what is AE? Architecture and engineering in accordance with Chapter 4 of the manual. Utilize the AIA, which is the American Institute of Architects, which is B133, the SCOSI edition. So if you're in South Carolina, find where the SCOSI edition is of the manual. But every state has the same policy for a construction manager at risk. Now, when you deal with the AE to design the schematic phase, you're going to have a site established. There's going to be a programming or functional spaces already established as well. Building configuration confirmed, and you're going to have life safety issues, and then you're going to have a cost estimate to verify a budget. Also, there's going to be a procurement of CMR in accordance with Chapter 11 of the manual. You're going to utilize AIA 133 again under the SCOSI edition. Also, there's going to be a selection via a two-step process, i.e. request for qualifications. I just mentioned to you earlier what RFQ stands for. Now you know in full. Again, it's request for qualifications, and RFP, which is request for proposals. And then you're going to have a selection committee for RFQ, RFP process. And under that, then you're going to have what we call the OSC. They're going to appoint a non-voting chairman, which is going to be a OSC PM. Then the agency head selects the remainder of voting and non-voting committee members with chairman occurrence. And they're going to also have technical advisors, which they may or may not be required. And then you're going to have a confidentiality and conflict of interest policy. There's going to be a selection plan created by the agency PM, approved by the agency head, committee, and chairman. At a minimum, the plan should describe the property and or facility to be acquired. Then there's going to be an explanation of the solicitation and evaluation of qualifications and proposals set by the committee. Then you're going to list the RFQ and RFP evaluation factors and their relative importance. So you're going to use the weighting factors option. And then you're going to identify the chair and members of the committee. You're also going to establish milestone dates for completion of the selection process. Remember, the plan is never shared with offerers for the construction manager at risk. Now, under the RFQ, request for qualifications, it's basically a pre-qualification process. And the RFQ is going to be prepared by the agency CM with the assistance of the committee. It's going to describe the general scope of work. It's going to instruct prospective offerers on how statements of qualifications are to be organized and submitted. It informs prospective offerers of the evaluation factors and their relative importance. So at a minimum, factors are past performance, description of CMR approach to project management, bonding capacity, and financial stability, related CMR experience on projects of similar size and scope. Now, this is how engineering and architecture consultant companies also get work based on this process as well. The client could be a DOT or any other government agency, or it could be a developer. They're going to score the consultant, and the consultant with the best score is going to win the project. It's basically what a CMR is. It's a consultant. Also, the invitation for CM risk services. It's advertised under SCBO. And under SCBO, it provides brief description of project and budget. Also informs offerers where the RFQ document may be obtained. And then you're going to have a pre-qualification conference. Yes, no, location. And then you're going to have a submittal due date, location, and number of copies. And there's going to be a review of the statement of qualifications by the community. And that's going to produce a listing of the most qualified to least qualified. And then once that happens, the agency solicits proposals from at least the 3 most qualified firms. Also, when we deal with the request for proposal, I did say it was going to be prepared by the agency PM with the assistance of the committee. It may include schematic documents from the AE, architect or engineer. It's going to instruct the pre-qualification firms how proposals are to be organized and submitted. To submit their proposal fee for pre-construction and construction management fee in a separate sealed envelope, and the factors to be used to evaluate proposals. So basically, at a minimum, evaluation factors are qualifications of proposed CMR staff, the ability to perform the requirements of the contract, history of on time, on budget, and on schedule for CMR projects, related CMR experience on projects of similar size and complexity, proposed CMR pre-construction and construction management fee. Other factors are going to be required by the committee. Also, there's going to be a pre-proposal conference for the pre-qualified firms and it may be held to clarify the request for proposal, which is the RFP. Then there's going to be a purpose of conference, and it's not to modify or qualify the terms of the solicitation. And then you're going to have the agency project manager and chairman conduct a conference. And then the selection committee, when a conference is being conducted, should not be in attendance. Now, for every meeting minutes of the conference are to be taken. And that's documentation on what was stated in the meeting. And those meeting minutes are going to go out to the individuals who were present at the conference. Receipt of proposals. Agency timestamps proposals as received, including modifications, and secures until due date. Proposals are opened publicly by the agency, PM, and a witness. However, proposals are not open to public inspection. The contents of the proposals and identity of the offerers, they're also not disclosed. So if members of the public are in the opening, the proposals are open and verified in silence. Interviews and ranking proposals. Now, I may have done this before, so it's going to be a little review to others, but this is exactly how consultants work, exactly how contractors work. There's a process, particularly to getting government work. So you're going to have an interview and there's going to be ranking of the proposals. And under that, committee members should review the proposals in comparison with the evaluation criteria prior to interviews. And at the close of interviews, committee members will score the evaluation on the SC 415 with the exception of the cost proposal criteria. And then the agency PM opens the sealed envelope and reads aloud the pre-construction fee and construction management fee for each offer. And then the committee members complete the scoring for cost proposal, totaling their scores, breaking any ties, and submission of the SC 415 to the chair. Now, the chair is going to compile. The chair is going to comply with what goes into the process. But once everything is gathered up from all of the prospective firms, the chair compiles all scores on the CMAR selection committee summary to establish the top ranked firm. Then there's going to be a consensus of committee. Then there's going to be a selection committee report and recommendation. So therefore, the agency PM prepares report to include all data and scoring sheets used to support the committee's recommendation to negotiate an award. A report is delivered to the agency head for review and written approval. CMR negotiations. So they're going to utilize the SCOSI AIA A133 edition. Of course, utilizing the AIA A133 SCOSI edition. This is where the agency negotiates with the CMR, the construction manager at risk. So there's going to be a construction management fee. It's going to be under the construction management fee, participation in design process and design review meetings. There's going to be a review of construction documents, cost estimating, which is going to include materials, labor, and possible savings. Construction management fee expressed as a percentage of the GMP, and the percentage does not include general conditions. And there's also going to be a splitting of the savings between the owner and construction manager at risk. And unsuccessful negotiations with the highest ranked offerer allows the agency to negotiate with the second highest rank. Then you're going to have the notice of intent to award. Decision to award is by agency head or governing body following successful negotiations. And with concurrence by the OSC signing the request of concurrence in posting notice of intent to award, CMR contract SC 460, The agency may post a notice of intent to award under SC 470. Again, this is for South Carolina, but even though it's South Carolina, it happens in every state. And then once everything is completed, there is a 10-day protest period. Then we move on to the pre-construction phase. So during the remaining design phase, the CMR reviews design documents, performs constructability reviews and availability of labor and materials, identifies project sequencing and early construction packaging for phase construction. The CMR during the pre-construction phase is going to basically, he's going to evaluate all the systems and make cost-effective recommendations. Going to evaluate budget and make suggestions, and then updates the schedule and cost estimates, and then the CMR is going to consult with subcontractors. Then you have the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price. So at a time agreed to by the agency and CMR, a GMP is submitted to the agency. The GMP includes the cost of the work, direct costs for labor and materials, including subcontractors' overhead and profit. And there's going to be a construction management fee, CMR general conditions, so costs associated with establishing and manning a project office. Then you're going to have the CMR contingency, and it's the amount of contingency that will reflect to the amount of risk the CMR is willing to accept and the condition of the design documents. And there's going to be some availability to the contractor to cover increased costs beyond its control. Example, alleviate costs for defective and non-conforming work, increases in subcontracts, and acceleration of costs. That's acceleration of costs, etc. And then unused contingency is returned to the agency at project completion. Then the cost of performance and labor bonds and insurance are also included. And under GMP, successfully negotiating a GMP results in submitting to OSC. That's going to be a request for authority to execute Exhibit A to CMR under contract SC 475, Exhibit A to the AIA A133 SCOSI edition, change order to CMR contract SC 480. Again, I'm repeating, this is under South Carolina. But again, every state goes through the same or similar process. And again, when you have a GMP that is unsuccessful, or we can say unsuccessfully negotiating a GMP results in the agency terminating the CMR contract and proceeding with the construction via design build process. And then construction. Construction of the facility is similar to the process established in Chapter 7 of the manual. And in Chapter 7, you're going to have change orders, change directives, claims and disputes, payment to the contractor, which could be the CMR, construction manager at risk, substantial completion, certificate of occupancy, final completion, and 1 year corrective work period. And to summarize, construction via the CMR process has been used successfully in South Carolina agencies. The CMR process is in time consuming for the agency PM and committee members. CMR may not be the lowest initial cost method, and most agencies feel they receive a better product than design bid build because of the relationship between owner, AE, and CMR during the final phase of construction or final phase of design through construction. And let me make a correction on something. The CMR can also be the contractor. Now, where I notice CMR, from my experience, it's generally one who's on the design side and on the architecture side, because we are in the design phase. So with contracts, you have design build, you have design bid build, you have guaranteed maximum price. You have different ways that contractors want to get work done. But overall, this topic is still under construction management. And again, when we deal with construction management, basically, we're looking at a structural overview detailing how a construction project will be planned, executed, monitored, and closed, aimed at ensuring that projects are completed on time, within budget, and the quality standards. So when we deal with construction, we're dealing with the product life cycles, risk management, scheduling, cost estimation, resource allocation, and safety compliance for stakeholders. And the key elements that you have to understand when we deal with construction are project phases. And that's just basically detailing a breakdown of initiation, planning, design, bidding, construction, and closeout. Then you have your roles and responsibilities, and that's the definition of the construction manager's role in directing subcontractors and managing site personnel. And you have your management strategies, specific plans for cost control, quality assurance, and site logistics. Risk mitigation is the identification of potential project hazards such as safety issues, material shortages, or budget overruns. Tools and technology, which is the utilization of software for scheduling like Gantt charts and tracking progress. And again, you utilize everything within construction management for communicating project objectives, requirements, and constraints to owners, contractors, and team members. So what I've done, I've given you the definition of construction management, but I've broken it down into the construction manager at risk because that person, the CMR, could be an agent, which is a contractor, or somebody who's on the design staff, but you're dealing with the design process when you deal with the construction manager at risk. And again, it's very important if you want to get into design. Design is great if you want to be an engineer or an architect. If you just want to build the project, go on to the contractor side. But in the end, as you just heard tonight, was information on the contract manager at risk. And that concludes this topic of the contract manager at risk right here on the QCIS channel. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some political and social content and some news, check out my main channel, the 411 Talk Zone Radio Show channel, right here on YouTube. Now, here's where you can find me. On the 411 Talk Zone Radio Show channel, you can find me right here on YouTube, X formerly Twitter, True Social, and of course, Rumble. And for the QCIS channel, you can also find me right here on YouTube, X formerly Twitter, and LinkedIn is finally back up. I posted last week's video, and the videos that I provided 2 weeks prior that could not get uploaded to LinkedIn, those videos have also been uploaded to LinkedIn. Once again, thank you for viewing this content on the Construction Manager at Risk from the QCIS channel. On this channel, you get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. I want you all to have a wonderful and gracious evening.